meeting to order, please. Kathleen Allen. Here. James Bell.
Here.
Amy Callan. Here. Ryan Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chapa.
Here.
Samuel Tripp.
Present.
Elise Manicha. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, I missed Brandon Legault's name. Brandon Legault?
Here. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Next. No. Next, we will move to the floor to the public. We have a couple speakers. First, we have Christopher Sugar. Christopher, if you could please come up to the table and just state your name and address.
Christopher Sugar, 766, County Route 25, Sweden, New York.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Sugar, and I am a senior at Oswego High School. Throughout my high school career, I've been given the privilege of sitting through classes taught by great teachers, being taught how to think critically and rationally on the greatest gifts I could have ever been given. Some teachers I will keep in contact with as well as play golf with for years to come. Some act as more than teachers, they are mentors as well. Recently, what I've been taught for 4 years has become irrelevant. Supposedly, what I have been taught to do by great teachers was wrong. Now I was told my quotes that I wanted to put in the yearbook weren't appropriate. I then realized the school is as welcoming as the district may claim. The student guidebook on page 7, lines 1 through 4 states, the Oswego City School District Board of Education is dedicated to educating students to develop desired, moral, ethical, and cultural values to stimulate and expand a continual learning process and to cultivate an understanding and appreciation of the rights and responsibilities of American citizens, which will enable them to function effectively as independent individuals in a democratic society. Now, as some of you may know, this year's yearbook was a bit of a disaster, to say the least. Putting aside the many spelling and grammatical errors, there are bigger issues. Senior quotes are a big part of who you are, and as a student and a person. Nowadays, a quote in a yearbook holds more importance than one may think. Looking back at the nomination of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and his yearbook in various years of his school career, they were brought into question when his character was in doubt. Democrats accused Kavanaugh of being an alcoholic based on a picture of him drinking. As we can see, even our leaders are put into question based on a simple thing like a yearbook quote or picture. A fellow student submitted a quote like most seniors, was surprised to find out the yearbook staff had made a huge error. Instead, they gave him a quote that was submitted by another student under his picture. The quote was, "The more bud you drink, the wiser you get." Now, this quote may seem fun and harmless at first, but now, according to him, he's been made fun of for being an alcoholic, which he is not. Looking back at Kavanaugh, what if the student would ever run for office or an executive job at a company? They may question his integrity and hard-working efforts due to a risk he may have a drinking problem based on decisions he made as a teen. He shouldn't be expected to get 2 affidavits from 20 years in the past to hopefully prove his innocence over something he's innocent about that he never said. Another student had quite a different experience in the yearbook. She opened it happily, then soon found out her picture was not in her senior yearbook with her fellow friends and peers. The yearbook staff then apparently talks to her family and resolves the issue, but the issue can't be solved. Like myself included, she was one of the many students to be offered $20 back for the yearbook's mistakes. Not including someone in the yearbook is the equivalent of them never walking through the halls or sitting through classes and pretty much being told they have no relevance or points to the school whatsoever. I myself had 3 quotes denied, one from Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Liberals are the most intolerant people who preach tolerance. Then from President Reagan. It isn't so much the liberals are ignorant, it's just that they know so many things that aren't so. And lawyer Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings. I was told by the yearbook staff that the main cause of this debacle was that administration denied the quotes. I met with Principal Wallace. He apparently had no knowledge of this. So here we are, nobody apparently knows. Don't you find it a problem that no one in administration knows who's approving or denying what? Decisions are made without Principal Wallace knowing, and then he is blamed for censoring students. What are some students being taught? Instead of accepting their errors throughout the book, I was told, and I quote, "I don't know what to tell you, the administration denied your quotes." I know this may seem repetitive or a waste of your time, but let's think of some of the students at our school whose parents want to give their child something they can hold on to and look back for years to come. They give them their big gift of the year. Some students, as we know, are homeless and cannot afford it. A great number of students are in poverty, as Oswego has a 28% poverty rate. That's over 1 in 4 adults in poverty, not including students. their children. So we're letting parents spend $70 to $100, which is a week's worth of food, a new set of school clothes, an electric bill, water bill, doctor's appointments, or medicine. And this is what we give them. Cardboard and glossy paper with random letters and pictures thrown together, which may or may not include the child's own name, photo, quote, or any memory of them whatsoever. Thank you for letting me speak. I wouldn't have had to do this if I was given the answers to my various questions regarding the situation. This is the only way I could ensure my voice was heard and to represent the rest of the student body's voice that didn't wish to speak or didn't have the courage to. And I just wanted to speak up about how much censorship and carelessness can have huge effects on students, parents, the district, and the community. Thank you.
Next, if I could have Darlene Upcramp come to the table.
Hi, I'm Darlene Upcramp. I'm a fellow board member from Vice President of the Mexico School Board. I'm also Director of Central New York School Board Association. That's why I'm here tonight, is to thank you for being part of Central New York School Board Association, but more importantly, to recognize Amy and James for their years of service and dedication to the children and the district. Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
a little hope.
Next, could I have Jackie Wallace?
Jackie Wallace, 180 West 4th Street. Two things. One, I wanted to say kudos for supporting some really cool events throughout the year. My son just actually got to go sailing from Kingston, Ontario to Oswego. That was pretty neat. So I encourage the board to continue to support teachers' really cool, unique, out-of-the-box ideas. The other thing I wanted to bring to the attention of the board is we've been having issues throughout the year at Layton Elementary, so I'm representing our home school tonight with parking, which mainly is an issue in the afternoons. Prior to the school board coming over here and the fence coming down, there was not a lot of issues. There was at one point in time actually in between what now is the Ed Center parking lot and the high school, signs up that said 15-minute parking for drop-off and pickup times. We were hoping to bring something like that back, especially in the time between now and when the construction happens and there's more parking spaces, because there's been issues with safety and students running in between cars, especially at the drop-off time. So there could be some brainstorming and maybe even some of those parking only during or drop-off times, 50-minute parking during the time of drop-off and pickup. That'd be great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is recognition, and I will hand it over to Dr. Sweeney.
We've really been thinking about different ways to recognize our folks for the good things they do. And we have had over the years certain medical items that have come where people have really stepped out of their comfort zone to provide assistance to our students or to our faculty or our staff. And we thought that a nice way to recognize that would be to start a Hero Award. And that way we can recognize those people who go above and beyond in a lot of different ways. So I would like to, we have a few individuals and then recognition for a school as well. So I'll read the individual recognition, have those individuals come up, and then I'll read the school recognition, and I believe Mrs. Simmons is going to come up and accept it. Erica DeMott, for her exceptional and courageous life-saving actions on April 4th, 2019. Her swift and professional emergency response resulted in the preservation of life. The Oswego City School District is proud of her service to our students and hereby presents her with this Oswego City School District Hero Award. Okay, very good. The Oswego City School District Hero Award is presented to Alexander M. Ui, Oswego City School District Health and Physical Education teacher, for his exceptional and courageous life-saving actions on April 4th, 2019. His swift and professional emergency response resulted in the preservation of life, and the Oswego City School District is proud of his service to our students and hereby presents him with this award, the Oswego City School District Hero Award. And Officer Thomas E. Grover, the Oswego City School District DARE officer, for his exceptional and courageous life-saving actions on April 4th, 2019. His swift and professional emergency response resulted in the preservation of life, and the Oswego City School District is proud of his service to our students and hereby presents him with this Oswego City School District Hero Award. And our last but not least, the Oswego City School District Hero Award to the Fitchue Park School faculty and staff for their swift, caring, and professional response on April 4th, 2019. Their exceptional response of your school resulted in the preservation of life, and the Oswego City School District is proud of your service to our students and hereby presents you with this Oswego City School District Hero Award.
I'll take a couple just to make sure everyone's mouths are open. Thank you.
And I forgot, I just want to introduce Heather Del Conte. She has been invited to sit at the board tonight. She will be a new board member, returning July 1st. So we just invited her to sit at the board tonight. Next, we will go to unfinished business, starting with bus drivers, comparison of rate of pay for bus drivers, Oswego to other districts. Any discussion?
Do we have that sheet wasn't attached to this, right? It was in transmittal here. Do you need it? So I'm not sure if anybody else had anything to say about where our numbers lie in comparison to other districts. Do you want to see it through here?
Okay. Is it in
See,
here?
I don't
No,
know.
no,
it's not.
It was in
Oh.
transmittal.
It was in transmittal, it's not attached to our agenda.
I think in some information that Nancy and I were gathering and in speaking to some of our colleagues around the county, we went through some tough financial years. And I feel like perhaps our typical sub raises may have fallen off. And now we are not as competitive as some of our neighboring districts. So we're hoping to dig into that a little bit more, as well as I had noted in the transmittal, some discussions about some of other sub positions, and work our way back to being a little bit more competitive.
So, I mean, I'm sure you're able to go back and look at that. I mean, that's something that would be easy to find, year to year.
Where we flattened out a little bit.
Right.
I guess to ask Tom, I saw Tom coming in, is that where we see a deficiency, is in the sub? Is that where that's where we lack?
Yeah, the sub-levels are way down, Jim.
Okay. So we simply don't have the bodies, because have you heard in the industry that it is with everybody, or is it a monetary issue, or?
No, it's a problem throughout the nation, to be honest with you. But we're experiencing it as much as anybody, so I think we're all looking for answers.
Have you talked to Central Square to see if they have?
Central Square, right, they're doing, they're more successful finding people than we are at this point.
because they're paying $7.60 more an hour.
Yeah.
Right, right. That's
And,
the,
and then kind of going along with that too, I know that we talked about that they have to come up with the money too for their certification. I don't know if I'm doing the right.
Yeah, there's all kinds of requirements, the fingerprinting before you become a driver. All the training is on their own time, as well as the fees for the road test and all that. It's a big upfront cost
Okay.
to become a school instructor.
And do all of those districts do the same thing that we do? Ask them to pay those
I'm not
up?
sure of that.
I mean, that's another thing to look into. I mean, that's
well,
huge.
it's, yeah,
piece of the
to
puzzle.
talk to them to see what, if they're not having as much trouble.
Right.
If they're
Then what
able
are
to
they
find
doing?
people. Yeah. Would you drive a half hour a day to go get $7 more an hour if you're working this up?
Right,
Sure.
yeah.
This only shows sub-driver. What about regular drivers? Are we in the right ballpark for that?
That's why I ask if that's where the deficiency is. He says it is subs. It's not in our routes. Apparently, we have enough, and so we're just short on, is it the vacation? Is that what gets us, or?
Yeah, sick time, vacation, and then extra runs, sport runs, field
Right.
trips, things like that.
The sports runs is really the big deal, right? That's where you get the subs, that's where you do the after-hour stuff, that's where we need the people. And
So
that's where
that's
we're
okay.
not playing games
Right.
because we don't have a driver.
Right, so we're spending money on the coaches and the time and all that other stuff, but then we're not able to send them to a game. So I mean, that's
Right, yeah.
big picture,
Yeah.
something we need to figure out for
Yeah.
sure. So that's why we're looking at the sub numbers then, is because those are the folks who are driving kids to games and doing the extras. So we have enough people for our regular routes.
Yeah.
That's not the issue.
That's not an issue.
So I think I'm skipping down a couple. I know we had talked about the idea of doing the passenger vans. I mean, did you guys look into that?
We did. So all of our runs are contractual within the CSEA bargaining unit. So if we have a trip that's less than 100 miles, CSEA has that job. So we can't just pull anyone else in or we would get a grievance.
But if we didn't have anybody available, that's why we're talking about going to these vans, is because you don't have that driver available, that somebody else would be able to drive that passenger van.
Right. So, so I had talked to Tom. He also said, with the drivers, if we had less than a 15-passenger van, the coaches would still need to get a commercial license. So they would have to go through all of the training that a regular bus driver would have to go through.
So it's, okay, so it's the same.
Yep.
It's not a limo, it's the other license for bus.
Class
It's
C.
a commercial,
It's the same,
right.
regardless of the size of the unit.
Anything
It has to do
below
with the size.
15 passengers, anything above 15 passengers, 15 or more would need a commercial license.
But we don't have any vehicles
Right.
that are less than a 15-passenger vehicle
Right.
for a coach to drive a team.
And I'm sure Rhonda could answer this, most teams probably
Exceed that.
have more than.
Sure, it'd be two vans, for sure. But
And to ask the
Doable.
coaches,
Yeah.
and to ask the coaches to drive a team would also require us to negotiate.
yeah, that would be a responsibility that they're
We
not.
have to negotiate that
Yeah, I
and
know.
have some sort of MOA, not only with OCTA, but with CSEA.
Sure.
Yep.
I understand it, Dave.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I just point out something else as far as your pay scales? And we're talking about sub-pay and our, across the board, our sub-pays, but also probably in the last 10 or 12 years, there's been several years where between ACTA and CSEA, we've taken 0% for raises because we've had bad budget years. So between freezes and 0%, our pay scales across the board haven't kept up with inflation either. So quite often, we'll, especially with bus drivers where you do need those credentials, we have people come in here, they train, they drive here for a little bit, and then they find out that, well, they can go to Phoenix and make $7 an hour more.
Yeah.
So that's
And I-
another problem we have is the pay scale once you are hired
Yep,
permanently.
and I think this would work, much like minimum wage does when the minimum wage goes up, everybody
Right.
else's.
Yeah, we
goes up.
have,
That's the same thing with the permanent drivers.
Right, some of our negotiated salaries are already minimum wages, nearing or surpassing
Sure.
those wages. So
Yeah.
it's difficult.
I don't doubt it, yeah. It's been an aggressive minimum wage jump in the last 4 years, very aggressive.
So I got a question. Rhonda, I had heard that we had to cancel some sporting events. Did that happen, or was that just hearsay?
We had to cancel a couple.
So they made up or just not?
When Mother Nature was willing to allow us to get it in, we could, but there were other situations of lack of officials. Spring was just not gentle to us, so the priorities were always for the varsity sports, or if you're in postseason play, that's where the transportation went, that's where officials went. So there was just a couple, but again, that could have been because we were trying to cram everything in within the 5-day
Yeah.
period of time. You know, I think Mother Nature was really more at fault for that.
Okay. Got it.
Because we didn't see those issues last year.
It's, I guess that's a good question.
So have we thought about ever partnering with other districts like Fulton or Hannibal or anything like that? If we don't have the drivers to take them somewhere, can we reach out to them and use their resources? Have we done that?
Yeah, we have monthly meetings amongst supervisors, within Oswego County Transportation Supervisors, and we've batted around that idea many times. There's issues with it. I mean, there's a lot of work involved because we have to maintain records as they were our own drivers also. And to be honest, most districts are in the same boat that we are, that they don't have a lot of extra drivers. So the days, it seems like the days that sporting events are going on, everyone has sporting events, so there's no extra drivers anywhere. So, but we have looked at that, yes.
I think the greatest solution that we should consider is looking at our sub-pay rate. I think that sharing drivers, I mean, we're hearing and we know that across the region, bus drivers are at a premium, and particularly sub-bus drivers. So if we're looking to solve that problem, and the other thing to remember too is Oswego is kind of the end of the road. And some other districts, if you go south, are surrounded by other communities, and they share the ability to have sub-drivers and sub-teachers, quite frankly, that can sub in multiple districts, where Oswego is kind of a destination. But I think that looking at our rate of pay for drivers and sub-drivers is really where we should start.
So who can lead that? So we can put it on an agenda and get it talked about and have it brought up. Who do we have that can lead that discussion?
Well, it would go to Nancy and Heidi in combination.
So could we get a time frame around getting a group of people together to talk about this and then reviewing it back at the board again, please?
Sure.
Jim's smiling, so he loves that.
Well, I just think it's, I mean, when you start thinking about contracts and how long it takes to negotiate a contract, I mean, we could always start that process anytime and start talking about that. Because especially for permanent drivers, it's gotta be a negotiated agreement.
Just in the last few minutes, we've had a lot of brainstorming that went around this, right? If you get a group together, they can do the same thing. As long as we come up with some solution, then report back to us, I think that'd be the right thing to do, so.
And if it could be done before beginning of the school year.
Even better.
Perfect.
The other thing I was gonna say is it's not the biggest piece of it, but it's a part of it. I don't know if it's popular or not, but, you know, a few years ago, back like when I was in high school and played sports, we shared buses too with varsity and JV. And I think that's good for many reasons. For JV, it's kind of root on the varsity root on the JV, let the JV players know what they can look forward to when they get to varsity. Let's face it puts people in the crowd that you're playing in front of people. So I've obviously got kids who are athletes, and it blows my mind when I see there's 2 buses for a soccer game or a basketball game. I think you can save money right there, and I'm sorry if it's not popular, but that'd be all in favor.
Particularly when many of the children ride home with their parents. So you're sending a bus?
Empty bus.
Yeah, usually an empty bus.
Is that a scheduling issue?
Sometimes it's a scheduling issue based on availability of fields, so.
But that's my
they're
point
mostly
though, is
different.
they can sit, if JV can sit and watch the varsity game, the varsity can sit and watch the JV game, so that they're actually doing team spirit for each other. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what she's saying is like different sports, like volleyball,
Volleyball does that.
they do it together,
Yeah.
JV and varsity go together.
Yeah.
But baseball, because you're limited on fields,
Right, so it won't work for everybody,
You're
but
not
I think
When it
soccer,
I think that's
basketball,
Basketball, volleyball.
Yeah. We try to do that as long as the school, so if we're gonna go somewhere and we would send our varsity with our JV, because the JV plays first, we just wanna make sure that there's a place that if there is an issue, you know, they wanna go inside if it's, you know, the weather is not, you know, conducive, the kids are still playing, but they're
Yeah,
just
not
sitting
sit on
there.
bus or
We wanna make sure that they have a space, so. But that is discussions. We're also talking amongst our league about embracing maybe some more modified contests on Saturdays versus trying to fit them all in the week when there's varsity contests that have a specific deadline date because they have seating meetings. So we're also thinking a little bit outside of the box as a league.
So we can keep this on the unfinished agenda until the resolution is put to the board, right?
What's the total cost for someone to get their CDL and fingerprinting and the training and all that? What, do you have a number?
It's probably about $500 when it's done.
I think we talked about it last year, and it was close to $500 or $600 all said and done.
Plus, the state has raised the bar as far as passing the driving test. The federal government has come down with new guidelines, which 75% of all drivers that take the test fail it the first time. So it's $40 every time you take the test. So.
$40? Do they fail the paper portion or the performance?
They're saying mostly in the brake portion of it, so we're really keying in on that, but human nature, nerves gets you, you know, when you're there, and if it's not perfect, you're gonna.
When this conversation takes place about what we're gonna do, how we're gonna enhance people to come here, I think part of that conversation ought to be that the district assumes those costs. And I know you're gonna say, well, they'll stay a year, 6 months and they'll leave, but I think we can enter them into a contract. Jimmy say, you know, we're gonna pay your cost for you to get certified to drive that class, but you gotta stay with us for 3 years.
5 years.
Yeah, I
Whatever.
think we've kind of been having that discussion, but that runs into issues also.
It may not be, right, it may not be legal
Yep.
for us to say you have to stay with us for 3 years, but what we can do is put a non-compete clause in. You
Right.
can't leave us.
To go to
Go
Hannibal.
drive at Central Square.
You can't drive a bus for a district
They
any
have to
closer
put
than 90 miles.
But they can also.
So I mean, those are things that we can consider.
Right. Well, and I think too, to go along with what we were saying before, to find out, I mean, do that research and find out what other districts are doing. You know, are we the only ones that are making them pay it up front, and other schools are having more success because they're absorbing the cost? I mean, that's another big piece of the picture. So.
Yeah, if they're developing a program to groom drivers so that it's a rotisserie,
Right.
that's what you're looking for. And
Exactly.
if you don't have to pay $22.60, maybe you pay $21.
Mhm.
You offer a program. that-
Exactly, yeah. Do something in.
Yeah, just for that, yeah.
Right.
Take care. Okay.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, making consent agenda items public.
So, we have put everything on the consent agenda with the exception of the treasurer report, which is the bank reconciliation piece, and the special education public.
Any
That's all out
questions?
there.
Discussion?
I think that,
Next is establishing board liaisons, board members to OCTA and CSEA.
Where are we with that?
I came into this conversation late, but I did meet with OCTA this week, and we agreed to have continued conversation about what that might look like and what they're comfortable with in terms of the schedule of meeting. And they're interested in getting that up and running by September.
Because I
It's a little
do.
different for CSEA.
So I know that, and when we talked about this in the last meeting, we talked about, your guys' desire was to do like quarterly meetings. I don't know if you went back and spoke.
Well, I hadn't really gotten into it with like our executive board or anything like that, but I mean, my biggest concern, and it's why I spoke previously, is around budget time. I mean, I'm not so sure that with us, that whole meeting works as well as it does with OCTA, because they have established building representatives, and they have a chain of command amongst all their teachers that deal directly with that. building representative, and then they in turn go to their executive board, and then they have their monthly labor meetings or labor liaison meetings that we have as well. So we meet monthly with the district anyway. I would, I don't know how that would work for us, because we cover so many job titles and departments, and we have different department heads, or you're answerable to a principal. So it's kind of hard to put that, for me to picture that happening with us being part of that. And I don't have a steward, say, in every building, so then I would have to assign somebody or be at all those meetings myself.
Right,
And I'm already going to enough meetings currently.
So your focus is more on the budget and
Yes,
being able for every voice to be heard as far
right.
as.
If we could be invited to the table for budget workshops, regardless of the time of day, so that we could be at that table, I would be very happy with that.
Okay. And I think too, kind of going along with that, I know we looked at different formats for directors, so that every director was giving us the same exact form of request, meaning, you know, these are our prioritized list of things that we want, our rationale why we want them, and the cost associated with each one of them, so that when we're looking at what the superintendent is showing us as a recommendation, we have something to look at and compare apples to apples. And I think something like that would work possibly good for you, that if it was something that was more standardized, so that, I mean, I'm not, but I mean, I agree, I think that you need to be invited to the table for discussion so that everybody does have a voice. I think that's how this whole conversation started.
Right.
So that information wasn't kind of lost in translation as it went, you know, from which is naturally what happens. So I think for you, just kind of, I would love to see that in the future. I guess I'm not going to be here, but I would love to see people, you know, make
And
that
I'm open to, as Dean just said, that they're in further, they'll have more discussions with ACTA.
Yeah.
I'm open to further discussions with the district too, as far as some, you know, that type of thing.
Jim and I
think
met with this
currently
as
we're-
well. Not only did I meet with Carrie, but I met with Jim about this, and we had some conversation. We'll take all this feedback relative to gathering information to build the budget. It's really administrative prerogative. I like the idea of standardizing it, and we'll continue to look at that throughout the summer, and when we move into the next budget season, that's something we might look at. But opening communication with Jim relative to the building of the administrative budget is certainly not something we oppose.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is listing new positions for hire on the personnel webpage of the district website.
So prior to just this week, they were mostly internal, posted internally. Depending on the type of position that's open, we may put it directly on OLA, so we may wait and see what internal interest there is, because then that tends to create a bit of a domino effect. Transfers, and then a position opens up in this building, and then maybe some folks are interested in that. So Megan, one of my clerical support staff, she did put the positions that we have out on OLAS on the personnel page. And then the other part of the personnel page has the active links to both our professional OLAS and our support staff application link.
So then, so two questions. So when it's posted internally, is there a time limit of how many days it's posted internally before it goes out? Is it 5 days?
5, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So after that 5 days is up, then you're saying that the positions will be listed on the district webpage, so that it's easy access from outside people to
Yeah.
see, rather than have to go to a link.
If there's no internal interest, we know that the principal is interested in having.
Okay.
So after the 5 business days, calendar days, we create a post memo, and that goes to the director, the building principal, the department head, depending on, you know, what type of position it is. And then usually we have some conversations, and we know if there's some interest in maybe the internal transfer. And then depending on what the position is, like a library media specialist is sometimes hard to find. So if we don't know right off the bat that we have somebody interested in moving around, we may put that directly on OLAS concurrently, because we know it may take a while to find such a candidate. that's kind of our process.
Next on the agenda is the survey results.
Okay, I had, what's that?
I just said, here you go. More information.
More information, you asked for it.
No, you had asked is to have, oops. Did I give you
You
the packet?
I'm sorry, the staple
Didn't-
came out then.
Okay.
What I ended up doing is you had asked that you wanted to see all of it together, the schools. And again, it was so much information that I took the, I took the results with the 2 top percentage for each building and the 2 bottom. Because what will happen, the schools are meeting to write their education plans, their school plans, and they'll be using the survey to drive their goals for next school year. So what you'll be hearing is the goals of the building driven by the survey. And they're going to be looking at what's great happening in our building and what needs work. So those bottom 2 kind of will help guide where they might want to put their efforts in their education, in their school improvement plan.
However,
So-
they won't be limited to the top 2 and the top
Correct.
bottom. That's to give you folks an example of what some of the hot topics are from building to building.
But
But they have the entire data set.
This, and the one thing I have to say is I did not put in non-instructional because I had a couple schools that only had 7 respond, and if I was gonna leave one school out, I had to leave them out. And also, you'll notice I also put on here, I did not pick for elementary substance abuse as their number 1, because all of them were number 1 with substance abuse. I think that's kind of a given that the elementary students don't have a problem with substance abuse. So I wanted to give you truly the top 2, minus the one thing that probably does not come into play with elementary students. So that's everything laid out from building to building.
So this, and what you provided us previously, you broke it down into the people who took the survey.
Correct.
And non-instructional, instructional,
Correct.
students, parents. And so this is all put together minus non-instructional.
Minus, correct, non-instructional. And it's only the top 2 and bottom 2 of the survey results.
And
To
you
give
don't-
you a better picture of what
Okay.
the schools would be looking at. It's not all the entire survey.
But you have your full data set for the
You have
school
your,
you're assigned.
Right.
your individual.
Right.
So I wanted you to get kind of a snapshot, and there's a running theme through some of them when you look at the bottom 2. Many of all groups kind of identify one thing that is a running theme through there. And I also gave you the top question that would have scored that building towards either the low end or the high end, just to give you a feel of what was that survey question, what was part of that survey question.
In the administration of each one of the schools have this, correct?
I'm sorry.
The administration at each one of them.
Don't have this that I just gave you in their hands
But
yet.
we can use these as talking points with them,
You
and
may.
they'll be able to.
Absolutely. They have the complete surveys. They have access to the complete surveys. And some of them have already started diving into them and utilizing them to drive their improvement.
Yeah, which we heard in the last meeting.
And every school's doing that.
Every school is doing that. And then next year, they'll present their plans to you and talk about
When you say next year, what does that mean?
next school
In the
year.
fall.
I'm sorry, in the fall.
Okay.
You'll remember that 2 years ago, I asked principals as we toured across the district to do a presentation in their school on their school improvement plan that they worked on with their school improvement teams. And that was based on the GTSDE rubric that we've talked so much about over the past. This year, we're going to ask them to do something similar, except it's going to be based on the ESSA survey that we're using instead.
So when you look at this positive rating, right? And I noticed it in the first package that you gave and it broke it down into each piece, each question, as to how it's recognized. What is recommended, what is said to be the tipping point of needs attention, needs a whole bunch of attention, stop what you're doing and go fix this? What is the percentage
I just looked at, for that, I just looked at the bottom percentage and the top percentage. When the schools dive into this, they're going to look at, is it doable to fix this? How much effort is it going to take to fix this? Like, what is the glaring thing? And then they're gonna look at, is it human-driven, meaning people, or system-driven? Meaning, is it something the system has to work on? And then they're going to then look at, is this something that's doable? How easy is this to fix? How long range does this need? So they're really diving into it even deeper. I gave them a whole packet of ways to plan out their school improvement plan.
But there is no guidance for each school representative who's making these decisions. There is nothing. They're going to review the information and they're going to make those decisions based on the information that we have provided them.
Carrie, I'm looking through and at how many people responded.
Yes, that's
And-
important, that's why I put it in there.
Yeah, and like at the middle school, now we about 550 students, we got 38 parents responded, but yet 477 students responded.
The survey was given in the classroom. And then we are also planning for next year how to make the survey accessible to parents, maybe during open house, during parent-teacher conferences, and having computers available so parents can come in. We're trying to make it so we do bump up those numbers for next year, because truly a survey is only as good as the numbers behind it.
I recognize that at the OHS, the student level was exceptional.
Yes.
And then there was
Yeah, 90.
80 something like that.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah,
at the
we're
high-
thinking next year how to.
The high school, you got 1,100 students and
Correct.
90 parents.
Right.
I mean,
And that's out of 1,200 students.
but the student responses was 857.
Yep, captive audience.
Were they, did they?
In school.
But
They
only,
ran it
but
through-
only,
they ran it
got
through-
65%.
English, they did their English classes.
65%.
They ran it through English classes.
Okay.
But even that, if there's 850 of the, somewhere between 11 and 1,200?
A little over
Did
1,100.
did City BOCES students, were they given access to it? We do have some students that are full day out at City, I'm not sure, that might be some of the numbers.
I can check it out.
Okay. That might be saying some of the numbers.
It's, the hardest part was getting the high school students to take this home to their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I put out Jupiter mails and things, letting everybody know about the survey. We did have a lot of parents call, and we were ready to send them the information.
One takeaway from this year's pilot survey is that we know we have to mail it to 7 through 12
Yes.
next year.
We mailed it.
And provide, or provide an opportunity for them to come into the building and have computers to complete it.
It's computers.
Yep.
Having them.
So to plan for that cost and things like that.
So we did learn something.
We are, absolutely.
I mean, I think another important piece here is, I think for the board to look at is certain, whether it's like safety or wellness or discipline, and some of these that maybe didn't have a good rating, there's a lot of policies that apply directly to those certain areas. And I think that's where the board needs to do their due diligence and make sure that the code of conduct and what we're doing as far as safety and making sure that everybody's on. I know when Jim and I went to that workshop that Randy Griffin did through Oswego County, that was great and talked a lot about things that schools should be doing. But I'm just saying, like, really being cognizant of maybe what didn't come out so great in the survey, and then how you can then tie that into policy to hold, accountability and make sure that these things really are happening the way that they're supposed to be happening. So.
The other piece to remember is this summer, there's going to be training in Albany for the pilot districts that participated in year one, and there'll be representatives going for those trainings.
We hope.
Well, so they told us.
So they told us, I have emailed
That
them
was a
several
carrot.
times.
That was a carrot last year. Okay.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
I just wanted to say a couple things. As most of you know, I was out of work for a few weeks. I had a little health hiccup, and I really wanted to thank publicly the many faculty and staff members that reached out to me personally cards, comments, text, messages. It was I felt very supported by the faculty and staff of this district. I'm happy to be back and upright. So thank you for that. This is a great time of the year. Today was the elementary track meet, perfect weather, the scholarship award ceremony. The list really goes on and on of the things that we do. The end of the year is our favorite time because it's not only a time to recognize the great things that our students do, academically, athletics, music. March is also a celebratory month for us because that's when we celebrate all the performing arts in the districts. In our district. Now we have our athletic and music signing events. That's a wonderful opportunity. And really looking forward to graduation, which is a culminating event for K through 12. Graduation is a kindergarten through 12th grade celebration. ACTA has done a wonderful job over the years of having a great turnout at graduation of K-12 teachers. And in the last few years, I've really put a pretty strong push on principals and directors to attend, not only attend graduation, but to sit on the stage as leaders of the district to celebrate the graduation of all 7 of our schools. And this year, other than Kara has a child graduating, Linda has a grandchild graduating, administrative staff is all in at graduation. So I think that says a lot too, that we get our faculty and staff at graduation to celebrate the kids that walk across that stage from all of our schools. Next week, we start going to a lot of honors programs and celebrate the success. Last week was Mary Beth's 8th grade program in 150-degree heat. That was fun.
The first time, first and only hot day.
Always is.
Monday is Mondato, I believe. And the list goes on and on. We love to go to those events. I love to go to those events. So let's enjoy June.
Next on the agenda is the committee discussion. Would there be any discussion regarding committees tonight? Okay. Next is the consent agenda. A, approval of the treasurer's consolidated report, monthly budget status report, and the Oswego City School District financial report, May 2019. Fund balance projection, June 2019. Monthly transfer report, May 2019. Extra classroom activities fund report, Oswego Middle School, May 2019. Extra classroom activities fund report, Oswego High School, May 2019. Minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of June 4th, 2019. And the Special Education Board report of 6/18/19. Would there be any discussion? Could I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Brian? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Next, we will move to curriculum with Carrie Class.
Okay, A is the 2018-2019 summer grant proposals. These are the last proposals for the year. They both are coming from the middle school. One is connecting guard to the classroom. Science teachers and the home ec teacher are getting together. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Facts teacher are getting together to create units and lessons dealing with farm to table, garden. The other OMS end of the year field trips, they are the Wonder Works and Seabreeze, paying for transportation.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed.
E is the school comprehensive educational plan. This is the middle school plan they crafted for the state that is due to hand in on July 1. I was able to sit in on one of the SF, the school comprehensive education plans meetings. Just a lot of great conversation in the room. She had parents, teachers, students in the room. Very powerful to hear all the voices at the table as they crafted this plan together. How many days, Maribel?
We did, well, before, leading up to the SUP, from the designation with the OMS leadership team, we did 7 days. Leading up to the creation of the SUP, took 3.
3 days.
Yep.
So a lot of thought went into this. She has one more step, June 24th. She will be bringing a state rep in to look the plan over, and he will give her feedback before it then actually gets nailed down to Albany for a final stamp of approval.
Any discussion?
What happens from there, once this gets submitted?
So once the board approves it, then it goes on to the state level. We have to submit by July 1st. We hope they'll accept it. If they accept it, then it's our responsibility to put it in place, starting in the fall of 19, make sure everything, all the action steps that we put in the plan, we start to put in place. Some of them start in like August. And if it's not accepted, it'll come back to us for revisions. It will resubmit.
I know you guys put a lot of time in this, so thank you very much for that. And I'm sure it will get accepted. But after that, like, how do they monitor it, like on a, like,
Well,
how does that all work?
They have to monitor, they have to
We
put
monitor
specific
it.
benchmarks, and she has to monitor it and to see that she's meeting benchmarks. But there's also numbers involved of what she said she was going to reach.
Oh, okay.
And that's part of her benchmark. She will monitor it. And then the data will end up where the data will end up in after ELA and that state testing and absentee, the chronic absenteeism indicator. So we'll know if she's successful by those numbers also.
I just wanted to say thank you to, I had 5 teacher leaders from the school who sat in on all of these meetings, 5 parents who all volunteered. I just put an email blast out to the parents. I had 5 amazing, some of them are in the audience. Parents was the perfect group of parents that chose to volunteer, and 5 students. And we just put an announcement on the announcements at the middle school looking for volunteers. And we had 5 kids come forward who truly were, I mean, they were from a cross-section of the student population, but they did a great job. So I want to thank that committee because that was a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, that's great.
They did a nice job. Yep.
Could I have a motion, please?
I just, one other question before it's there. On the 24th, when it comes back, or that other date, will we have another time to approve it at that time? Do we need to reapprove it at that time?
No.
I don't
Well, on the
think.
24th, the guy,
Yeah,
Well, that's what it
it's
says.
drastically changed.
Okay, so they're just
Yeah.
reviewing and make suggestions and changes in it. So if we
When
do
they-
it, it's still changeable.
yeah, when the guy comes from the 24th, I don't think he's gonna make big
No.
sweeping changes. But what he explained to me was, he has done a lot of, he's worked on a lot of SEPs with different districts, getting them ready for submission. So I think they're gonna look at making sure that we've written these in terms of SMART goals, so they're measurable, they're achievable, right? I think and we've really tried to focus on making them SMART.
Right.
So I think, I feel comfortable. One thing that I think might make it better for us was there was an option to choose what was called the ESSA indicators, which basically, if we chose the ESSA indicators, the state gave us 3 goals. We didn't even write them, so the state wrote them for us. They wrote the goal for ELA, math, and chronic absenteeism, so we literally just put them in. We wrote the action steps to go with them, but we truly only wrote 2 goals, and we based them both on that survey. So I feel like it's gonna be okay, but
Yeah,
I've
it was
never
just
submitted
that
one
technically, if
before.
it was going to approve it, would we need to come back and
Oh.
approve it again if it was modified? But if we're.
I don't think there'll be
We haven't
changes.
previously, when we were in accountability for District OHS, Fitzhugh Park and Layton, we didn't have to bring back for approval, but you have to be willing to work with SED representatives in order to tweak and revise your plans. And they could always pop in.
And once the plan is solid, we do have to post it to our website. So
Yes.
that is another expectation, once it's solid.
I have a motion from Brian. Could I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is personnel with Heidi Sweeney.
Okay, professional staff recommendation, resignations. Melissa Russell, teaching assistant at the middle school, and Shannon Wells, teaching assistant at Riley. Those 2 ladies are continuing to move forward in their probationary teaching positions, so they're resigning their teaching assistant positions.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B, professional staff recommendation, leaves of absence. Ashley Deming, elementary teacher at Riley, and Joshua Lurch, elementary teacher at FPS, to serve in a second title in the coming school year.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C, professional staff recommendation, probationary teachers. I'm going to read the APPR statements, and then I'll read the individual teachers. Be it further resolved that the probationary expiration date will depend on the individual teacher's APPR ratings, and therefore be it further resolved that to receive tenure, the individual must receive overall APPR ratings of effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years, and therefore be it further resolved that if the teacher receives an ineffective composite or overall APPR rating in their final year of probation, they will not be eligible for tenure at that time. Bridget Oyer, Elementary Education, Minetto, effective, these are all 9/1, so they all have the same tenure date, 9/1/23. Ashley Deming, English at the Oswego High School. Ryan Labner, Physical Education, split between Riley and Fitchie Park. Joshua Lurch, Reading at the middle school, and Ashley Pritchard, Elementary Education at Minetto.
Any questions?
I just want to say congratulations to all these teachers. When I got this, I'm like, oh my goodness, I personally know or have heard prior to seeing their names there wonderful things about virtually all of them. So I think that's pretty awesome. We're lucky to have them, so congratulations.
And you'll meet them in September at a board meeting, and they'll be introduced like we typically do by the principals.
Could I have a motion, please? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
D, professional staff recommendation, probationary teaching assistant, Tiffany Gower, teaching assistant level 1 at Minetto.
Questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
E, professional staff recommendation, regular substitutes, Michael Clunin, teaching assistant level 1 at the middle school, Stephanie Dawson, literacy at Riley, Stephanie Kaiser, elementary education at Fitchie Park School, and Tammy Reynolds, library media specialist at KPS, all for the 1920 school year.
Any questions?
Do we lose Mike as a bus driver?
This is actually his son.
Oh.
Yeah, 2 Mike Clunins.
Motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, I know that Bill Carney's working in Kingsford.
Yes,
as
yeah, in a different program, yes.
Right. So
There's some movement, there's something.
right, from bus driver into classroom.
Absolutely. At the professional staff recommendations transfers, so before I read it, I just wanted to share that Karen and I and the superintendent have been talking a little bit about how to present information about transfers for informational purposes when in fact it doesn't really require your approval. So in some research, Karen discovered that some districts transmit the information under new business. So I think, we'll have some further discussions, but that may be how we convey those types of things in the future.
That's a good idea.
So for our transfers, Gretchen Coakley, elementary teacher, Layton to Kingsford, and Jennifer Saborski, literacy specialist from Layton to Kingsford.
Should I ask for a motion?
If it's not, I mean,
If
if
it's not really
it doesn't need their
Just
vote,
information.
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. If you don't mind, we could do G, H, I, and J together as our summer programs. Those are our extended school year, teachers and subs, as well as our CPSE and CSE committees and our Safe Buck programs. As presented.
Any questions?
Move it.
Motion?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, support staff resignation. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby, 1, accepts the resignation of employee number 2789, effective July 2nd, 2019, and 2, ratifies an agreement between the district and employee 2789, a copy of which is incorporated by reference in the minutes of this meeting, and 2, authorize and directs the president of the board to execute the agreement on behalf of the district.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
L, support staff recommendations, probationary. Joyce Orda, custodial worker, and these are all at the high school. Brianna Partlow, school monitor part-time, and Lisa Randall, 5-hour typist. Oh, sorry, at the middle school. Sorry, I just read it all quickly. 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school.
Questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
M, support staff recommendations, permanent, Elizabeth Rose, school bus driver, Nicole Palmer, school bus driver, Tricia Perfetti, school personnel assistant, Melissa Sorrell, benefits clerk, and Mark Tondor, school security officer, all folks who have completed their probationary period.
Questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And civil service termination, section 73. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District does hereby appoint John A. Sickinger Esquire as a hearing officer to conduct a hearing for the purpose of ascertaining whether an employee who's been absent from work for over a year should be terminated as a matter of law under Civil Section Law 73. Be it further resolved that the hearing officer is to conduct the hearing and prepare a report of his findings and recommendations, and that those findings and recommendations be submitted to the Board of Education for review and action. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District does hereby authorize that the hearing officer to be paid his or her usual and customary fee for their services rendered in this matter.
Questions?
So I would just like to share that we brought this forward because we would need to appoint the hearing officer, but we are in discussions with CSEA folks, their labor relations specialists, and the employee. We may or may not have to hold the hearing, but we wanted to approve the hearing officer in the case that we do have to hold the hearing.
I thought it was automatic if they didn't show up for a year that they.
Well, it is.
That's why we're lawyers.
But they have rights to a hearing, even though the hearing would typically be composed of me saying the person hasn't been here for a year and here are the attendance reports. Any other questions? That's really what it's comprised of, but they do have the right to that hearing if they wish to avail
Okay,
themselves.
but sometimes in the past, we've appointed a hearing officer, and it's gotten the day when the hearing, and the person doesn't show up anyhow. So we're paying the hearing officer, and the
no.
employee is not.
I just received a document today that may end the discussion, and the hearing is not scheduled until next week, Monday, Tuesday. I believe it's tentatively scheduled for next week, but our lawyer and I and they have been in conversation about, okay, I think we're good. But I just wanted to make sure I received all the documentation.
Covering your bases.
Yes.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
O, substitute and temporary employees 1819. And I think we probably could put P together with it. Those are sub and temporary employees, the start of the 1920 batch. These are some sub cleaners that we bring in over the summer to help our custodial staff.
Any questions? Motion?
Make the motion.
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And Q are temporary employees, student helpers for our summer custodial, paint crew, and buildings and grounds.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we will move on to finance with Nancy Squires.
A is for the board to approve an agreement with Jamesville DeWitt Central School. This is for the health and welfare services for the year for 18 students at a cost of $312.90 per student, for a total cost of $5,632.20.
Any questions?
Yeah, is that CBA, Nancy? Those kids, they're in Jamesville School District, they go to CBA?
These, I believe so. I think that's in the backup.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is.
That's good.
Can I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B is our annual contract with Omni for our 403B as their third-party provider. The cost is $2,544 for next year, which is a decrease of $396.
Any questions? Motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C are three agreements with city BOCES. The first one is a cooperative purchasing resolution, which authorizes city BOCES to put out bids on behalf of the districts that are participating. The second one is the City BOCES cafeteria supply and food bid resolution, which we do participate in, so that is the resolution that allows us to do so. And the third one is a generic resolution, which allows City BOCES to act on our behalf to award the bid.
Any questions? Motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
D is for the board to accept the results of the athletic and supply and equipment bid.
Any questions? Motion? Second? I'm sorry, second. Amy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
E is a resolution to establish a teacher retirement contribution reserve sub-fund. In the audit committee, our external auditor had talked about this. This is a brand-new reserve that we can fund to supplement increases in the teacher retirement reserve over time. And we can, as a district, fund it for up to 2% of the preceding year's teacher salaries. And it cannot be funded for over 10% of that amount. So as Tom Zuber was saying, if your salaries are teacher salaries are $3 million, the max you can fund that reserve for is $3 million. Most districts will fund that over the course of 5 years because they don't have that in budget surplus. So this is for the board to establish that reserve.
Any questions?
What do you think the need is for us? Like, is this a high need, something that for our district to have, or?
We already have an ERS reserve,
Right.
which is for civil service. The teacher rates do fluctuate in terms of going up or down. We never know what's going to be out in the future, but most districts across the state are establishing the TRS reserve.
Okay.
This is something new that they're doing?
This is brand new.
You can fund up to 2% annually of the total cost of your TRS, up
So-
to a maximum of 10%.
So this is just like any other reserve, kind of saves us from some kind of trouble.
Some
down the road.
something
Shocking
coming.
increase.
That's
Yeah.
correct, because the first 2% of any increase in ERS or TRS,
It's big.
it doesn't hit our tax cap.
Right.
So in the tax cap formula, if it's more than 2% fluctuation, we can take that as an offset of our tax cap. So this covers that first initial 2% increase in a year.
And I think it's important that the reserve is funded with surplus.
Yeah.
So if there's no surplus at the end of the year, there's no money going.
There's no money left, and that's right, no.
Well, that's really the only way any of our reserves can be funded.
Or if you find that some of the reserves, if it's overfunded, the board can choose to reduce that reserve and move it to another reserve. So there is some flexibility, but some are very restricted. This is one of the restricted ones.
Aren't ERS and TRS already established percentages of contributions from the employee and the employer?
Yes, but that's not what this is. This is for the claims that we have to the money that the district pays into those retirement funds. So this is our contribution, and if, say, the rates go up, today it's 10%, and say next year it goes up to 17%, that large swing a district might not be able to put into their budget. So this reserve would help offset some of those costs.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
F through J are resolutions that are brought to the board annually to fund reserves with surplus. And what we usually do is fund in excess of what we would have in surplus because our audit has not been completed. They will be coming in August. So what I've done is listed some funding options for the board to approve reserves up to a certain amount. And Resolution F is to fund the unemployment reserve at $1.4 million. The reason that I'm doing this is because I know that we have the $1.2 million from the sale of the Ed Center. And the capital reserve has not been reauthorized. We've maxed out the contribution that we can put into that reserve. So that reserve has to be reauthorized next year. So this is the most, in this reserve, we can get to that money, and the board can transfer from this unemployment reserve more easily to a capital reserve down the road if they see fit.
So it's a holding place.
Makes sense.
It's the easiest holding place to get to the money when we want it because the capital reserve is maximized. But we know we're going to be tapping into it soon.
When are we going to up the capital reserve? When are we going to up that amount?
So that's what hasn't happened yet. So we have, what the board has to do is they have to reauthorize the capital reserve. The initial reserve was up to $7 million. We've already funded it up to that level, so we can't fund any more. And we pulled out a large chunk, $5.9 million for this year. So next year, in order to reauthorize that reserve, it has to go to the voters. It has to go to the board, and then it has to go to the voters as a referendum.
So you're just in this first one here, so for F, you're saying to go up to the 1.4 million is adding the sale of the Ed Center into this, basically? Is what you're saying?
Yep.
As a holding place.
Okay.
Voting on them separately, or would you like to read them out?
I'm good. Do them all.
Okay. Resolution G is to fund the TRS reserve, which we've just established up to $550,000. I could have put that reserve up to $570,000, which was our 2% cap of last year's salaries. And the maximum that we can at this time, because it will be fluctuating depending on TRS wages from year to year, that will eventually be funded up to $2.9 million to be fully funded. Resolution H is to fund the employee benefit accrued liability reserve. This is to pay accrued sick and vacation out. And I would like to fund that up to $1.7 million. We have $495,000 in that right now. Our exposure from our last year's audited financial statements was $2.2 million. So this would fully fund that reserve. And the resolution I is to fund the ERS reserve $1 million, and J is to fund the workers' comp reserve at $500,000. When we get finished with the audit process, if as we go through, I've put these in a priority to fund. If we get down to the other ones and we don't have enough surplus to fund maybe the last three, those will not be funded. I have them listed in the order that we should fund, if the board approves so.
So this is just authorization to create the caps for, the amounts for each fund?
Based on any
Availability
surplus.
Surplus, okay.
Mhm.
Do you have an idea what the surplus is going to be? I mean, obviously you do if you kind of came up with these numbers.
They always tell us to overestimate what we're going to put into reserves. But if you look at your consent agenda B, which is your fund balance projection, and you look at the left-hand side of that, it actually says $3.9 million projected surplus over the 4%. And 1.2 of that is from the sale of the Ed Center. That's what we're expecting right now. But we are having, for cash flow, but with audit adjustments, everything's not in there yet, so that could go down.
So, okay, because I did read that, so I was gonna ask that. So it's 3.9, including the sale of the Ed Center.
Mhm.
What were we at last year for surplus? Was
Don't
it
have
2?
that off the top of my head.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. I forgot what I was gonna say about the, thank you.
So items F through J, could I have a motion?
We approved that.
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
K is for a budget amendment. We would like to increase our revenue on insurance recoveries for, by $110,000, $110,319, and to increase our transportation equipment account by that same amount. We had a bus accident, and this, the bus was totaled, and this was our insurance proceeds, so we would like to purchase a new bus. It's going to be a new gas bus.
Any questions? Motion?
Make the motion.
Tom, second?
Second.
Amy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
L is for the board to approve a budget transfer, and this is called an inter-fund transfer. There is some surplus in our lights and power account, and this is to put in an allowance for doubtful account or a reserve for our uncollected school lunch bills.
Any questions?
Yeah, those bills would be what, students?
Students.
Students not paying the bill?
Do we have an idea, ballpark idea of what that is?
The $11,500.
That's,
It would be completely reserved. So what we would do is there is some conflict with the way the federal and the state is telling us to account for these school lunch funds. And so what we're going to do is reserve the current debt right now, but we're going to hold on to those, and we do try to collect that money throughout the year. And then when those students get to be seniors, if we haven't collected by then we will write it off, but we will have that amount fully reserved in that fund.
So, yeah, I thought we talked
I
about.
thought we had passed something saying that we
You
weren't
did.
gonna collect it, it was state mandated,
You,
unfunded.
you passed the school lunch shaming policy.
Right.
And what that said is we cannot refuse a child a lunch because they have a balance on their bill, and we can't discuss it with the student. We have to discuss it directly with the parent. We send out from the food service department monthly letters. The cooks all do phone calls home
Sure.
saying, you know,
Right, trying to get-
can you pay on this bill?
Yeah.
I have to say that last year, 2017-18, our unpaid school lunch was $250 district-wide.
That's exceptional.
This year, $11,500.
Yeah.
This is not just Oswego City School District. This has happened through all school districts in the state.
Because of that lunch shame that.
A part of it is because parents know that they don't have to pay.
They don't have to pay and the kids can eat.
So we try to get out as many free and reduced lunch applications out there. We do a lot of direct certification, which we download from the system. So if a parent is in other programs, we get that information and they're certified immediately. So there's a lot of things that we're doing, but this is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
An unintended consequence for a good thing.
Could I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
M is for the board to accept the employee expense reimbursement testing internal audit report from Bonadio, which was reviewed with the audit committee today. And N is for the board to approve the independent audit report from Bonadio and extra classroom activity functions, which also went to the audit committee today. There will be corrective action plans on both of these coming to the board next month.
Any questions? Motion? All right, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
O, P, and Q is for the board to approve the claims auditor reports done by Tom Frawley, and he reviewed them with the audit committee today. We'll have good discussion back and forth on that. And the audit committee had decided to, instead of putting these under finance going forward, they would be part of the consent agenda.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
R is for the board to accept a donation for Fitchie Park from their home and school association to help with their school field trip, Bricks for Kids, which is a STEM project for their 6th grade, 6th grade classrooms, in which they build a motorized Lego model.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
S is for the board to accept another donation for Fitchie Park and Riley School for 100 reporters for each school, from Nancy Sparino on behalf of the Oswego Music Hall of Fame.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And T is for the board to accept a donation to Oswego Middle School in the amount of $900 from Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study. And this is for a study that the middle school participated in and was reimbursed for.
Any questions? Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is items from the board.
I have a couple things. I was hoping to catch Officer Grover before he left because I wanted to thank him for everything he did with the DARE program with our students. My son is in 5th grade at Minetto, and he absolutely loved Officer Grover. And that's all I ever heard about was the great things that he was doing. And then the DARE Day that they did on Friday, he could not stop talking about it all night, about the cool things that all of the police officers did and that they were all there. And so I just wanted to thank Officer Grover and the entire police department because that was a pretty phenomenal thing that they did for our students. And a lot of the people have left. Some of you are still here. Thank you all to all of the, like Dean said earlier, whether it was the elementary track meet or the recognition ceremony at the middle school is phenomenal. I mean, everything you go to, it's so nice to see everybody being celebrated and smiles on everybody's faces, and everything's so well organized and well attended. So that's really nice to see how well everybody works together and celebrates. So I want to say thanks for that. And also for someone on the board, I know Linda's not here, but Heather, you're here. I also sat on the Oswego County School Board Association, so I know that they'll be looking for another rep to fill the Oswego slot. So I don't know if any of you want to give up your name now, or you guys can talk about it in July. But it definitely is good for our district to be able to sit amongst other school districts in Oswego County to kind of, I know for myself, just networking, the people that I met, ideas, it was really, really great. So I think it's very important, and I hope that the Oswego School District continues with that collaboration with the entire Oswego County. And then, there was something else I wanted to say with, oh, I know, in response to Chris, I'm drawing a blank on his last name.
Sugar.
Thank you, yes, see his face. Do we, who is the final stamp of approval? I mean, I feel like that's kind of I felt bad listening to what he said, you know, and obviously there's two sides to every story, but I mean, to have that as his takeaway for his senior year, and he's not the only one, and I know last year we had a similar situation with the yearbook, so who is the final stamp of like denial, acceptance, like, okay, this is going to press, like, this is
Short of
forever memories.
short of talking about a personnel member, what I can tell you, and Pat can certainly corroborate this, is we've been dealing with this all week with a variety of issues related to the yearbook, many of which Christopher illustrated,
Right.
and many, and others. There is a plan in place to take some corrective action related to the quality of the yearbook that we're putting out,
Mhm.
the format, and other things associated with the yearbook. There needs to be greater oversight.
Mhm.
In the past, it is almost solely the students, am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes, but still, there needs to
Needs to
be
be,
adult
yeah.
supervision.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
that's where it breaks down. And I was glad that Christopher mentioned that, you know, he was told that it was administrative decision to eliminate quotes. Well, I think the kids see us all as administrators. And absolutely did Pat nor any other administrator at the high school make decisions about whose quotes were in there, anything like that.
Mhm.
I had conversations with everyone that was affected in the yearbook. And like the person that had that quote, I'm writing a letter, an official letter that said this wasn't his quote. And I also reached out to the girl that picture was missed. And I feel horrible about this. So we're putting things in, we have a plan in place. Talked to Dr. Gui about that, and we're moving forward with that. And we're also looking at how to make the yearbook more cost-friendly and accessible too. $92 is a lot of money for a book. And we also realize that it's a memory for everyone. So it's gotta highlight everything that happens in the high school, and it's gotta be balanced also. So we have we've done a lot of talking about this, a lot of pre-planning on this, and we're looking to move forward and not have something like this happen again.
So it's interesting, right? Because last year, my daughter graduated, we had the same issues last year, where the quotes weren't put in from myself, and there was also pictures that weren't put in, so I'm struggling with how it happened 2 years in a row. And maybe even multiple years of that. So we're definitely, we don't have our hands around this at all, and it kind of went a free-for-all.
We do have our hands around it, but I think in year one, there's some counseling that takes place between the administration and the supervisory staff and ACTA, and then you hope for improvement, and I know that Pat was checking and connecting with the supervisory staff of that project throughout the year regularly. But now, after 2 years of that, we need a change. It has to change, not only the vendor, but the supervisors. So that's the plan.
Right, yeah.
Yep, you're
But
right.
it's
Attention
been
to
more than
detail.
just 2
I was
years.
just
Yeah.
gonna say,
It's
it's been
Many to say.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Yeah, I can always go all the way back. There's,
And what Christopher was saying, I mean, my kids only get a yearbook their senior year
Yeah.
because they're too expensive. And, you know, when I talked to Pat the other day, one of the things that are missing that every yearbook usually has had was ads in the back
Yeah.
that would kind of try to offset
Offset
that
the
cost.
cost.
And I
Yeah.
don't
Very
understand why those
expensive.
aren't. And it is frustrating when you see things like this happen. I mean, my son's quote was wrong too. He had, he was
Yogi
quoting,
Bear.
he was quoting Yogi Bear,
Yogi
Berra, and they put Yogi Bear. And he's like, baseball Hall of Famer or a cartoon. And, but I forgot where it was going with that. Oh my gosh.
Just that it's been multiple years, it's
Yes.
not just.
It's not
Yeah.
it's
just
gonna,
one or
it's
two.
not a
Right.
perfect,
Right.
no matter.
So,
what
yeah,
the
somebody's
story.
gotta
It's
be
not a
replaced
perfect
here.
system, but more safeguards can be put in place,
Mhm.
and we're already revamping everything.
And I'm sorry, and I remembered what, it's just, it's frustrating to know they're so expensive to begin with, and then there's so many mistakes every year. And it is 2 class periods. It is not done after school. I mean, some of it's done after school, but it's 2 class periods and a stipend for
Yeah.
an Octa member that's getting. So that's the frustrating part, is that there's a lot of parts there that
Accountability.
exactly that shouldn't be happening.
No pressure on the new person, but we have high expectations.
Yeah, feel the heat.
Well, there should be. I mean, this is something that you can't
Well,
change.
once it
I mean,
goes
like
out,
he
you can't
said,
take it back.
It's done, like that is it, and that's what you get to remember, and your kids look at, and you can't change it. So attention to detail is.
We had a whole class left out in the elementary yearbook one year, and we, at the cost of home and school, printed the yearbook for that whole class with them back in it, and gave a yearbook to that whole class that was eliminated. Can't be done at the high school level like that,
Not
but
for every
it does
child, but there have been-
happen.
There have been corrections.
Do have
They
to
did
make
print
the
it, the
corrective.
picture
Yeah.
page was printed for that individual to be
Yeah,
able to be able.
to go in their yearbook, yes, yeah.
There are some oversights as far as those quotes, though, I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine you accepting every quote that some of those kids throw.
No, yeah, definitely need to be oversights on some of the quotes. I don't think Christopher's quotes were necessarily offensive.
No, I can't believe he
No.
was denied. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
those are denied,
That's
but
crazy.
Budweiser isn't.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't
It
talk
doesn't
about
make
a
any
liberal,
sense.
but we could talk about beer.
Yeah.
Would there be any other items?
I just wanted to say just a couple things. Obviously this is my last meeting, so I want to say thank you to the board and thank you to the community for from the beginning, believing in me, trusting me, and supporting me throughout, and even going beyond. I'm beyond moved by the support, so thank you for that. I really enjoyed this position immensely. I love learning, I love networking, I love all the people I met, all the things I learned. And I did take it seriously, and anyone who served with me, I think, would say the same thing. Took everything to heart, whether it was the trainings, focused really heavily on policy and procedure, and when they said in training that's our #1 thing, I took it to heart and really learned them and tried to do everything I could to hold accountability and all that. And I just think that's important, and I hope that going down that the future boards remember that it is a business and we are the leaders and that those things are important. I also, I'm really proud of, I think in 3 years, first of all, I never thought after 3 years I would not be returning or choose not to return. But in the 3 years, I am proud of the many things that we accomplished as a board. Things like establishing the creation of the board, setting goals for the entire district in order to really extend our long-range vision and plans, and then working to try to monitor them. I think that it was started, and I hope it's continued, and I hope it continues to improve. I think that was great. I think having a social media presence was huge, getting us finally up to date with the times and seeing everything, Rebecca, that you do with our pictures on Facebook. I know, Jamie, you help too, and all the pictures that principals send in. I think that that's such an awesome way to be able to see all the good things that we're doing in the district, and I think that that's really important. So I'm really excited that we were able to do that. Obviously, working to improve transparency and collaboration was really important to all of us, and I think doing things like with the audit committee, having Lisa Kimball from Pathfinder, who is specialized in finance, to have outside people, and just doing things a little bit differently, and collaboration and working with people who have different experiences and different niches within the community. And then that also goes to the Community Relations Committee and all of the work that they did and all of the brainstorming and ideas and really working together to get the much needed capital project off the ground and passed the second time around. So again, I think that these are all huge positives that we worked really hard to do as a board, and I just hope that it continues in the future. And so yeah, and I want to thank Jim, because I know the two of us, huge vested community members. We were really amped up to do this, and we did it together, and I think that, and I'm thankful for that. And I just want to thank everybody for their support and the community. I hope that in the future, and I know Jim and I have had this conversation, I just hope that in the future, we continue to have community members who are vested and really care about the focus and forward direction of the district, and that they get involved, and that they give their time back to the district, because, you know, we're only as strong as the people we surround ourselves with, and I think that it's really important. So thank you all for everything. I appreciate it. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
Any other items? At this time, excuse me, executive session. Would there be a reason to move to executive session?
Yes.
And reason?
To administer the end of the year evaluation and legal.
What anything for executive session?
Could I have a motion, please?
We have a roll call.
Sure. Kathleen Allen? Motion to move to executive session?
Yes.
James Bell?
Yes.
Amy Callan?
Yes.
Ryan Chetney?
Yeah. Yes.
Tom Chapa?
Yes.
Brandon Legault?
Yes.
Samuel Tripp?
No.
6-1. You may move to executive session. Thanks, Brandon.